I'm female, 35. My marriage was abruptly ended by my husband after a short trip he took to my home country. I'm from Haiti, and he's a US citizen. We had just been married for a year and divorced while I was pregnant. 8 years ago, he had gone to Port-au-Prince as a way to understand my culture better. I was supposed to accompany him on this trip, but I unfortunately fell ill just before we were supposed to go. He wanted to stay back and take care of me, but I insisted that we not waste the trip we had planned, and he went by himself. However, this did mean that I would not be taking him to meet my family. For many reasons, particularly how chaotic life was after I finished my master's degree, my parents had not met my husband. They could not even come to the wedding due to visa issues. After he came back, he was an entirely different person. He started ignoring me and was extremely cold. Just a month after he came back, I woke up to find him gone, and just a single note saying, "We're done," scribbled on the post-its we kept on the fridge. I asked his friends, and they had no clue where he'd gone. Simply put, he left me and our son behind without a second thought. When I reached out to his parents, they told me that I had been a terrible wife. Their son had told them everything and wouldn't be able to eke out a single piece of information from them. I tried to explain myself in tears, but they simply told me to drop the act. After a few months of trying, I was so deadened by the loss that I gave up. He sent me divorce papers via mail, and I accepted them without a second thought. I was so deadened by the experience and the disrespect of leaving me without a single answer that I could not continue in a relationship with this man any longer. Thankfully, I was never financially dependent on my husband. As an immigrant to the US, my family had put everything on my back and even made sacrifices to allow me to attend college in Florida. I had never wasted that opportunity and worked hard in the country. Little Joey grew up, and his father's absence greatly affected him. But he's a wonderful boy and has been the best son I could ever ask for. Last year, I also met a great guy while out grocery shopping with Joey, someone named Matt. I have been very hesitant to date since my priority is my career and my child. But Matt was a different type of man. Very respectful, gave me space, and did not push me into pursuing a relationship with him. We began dating just a few months ago, and things are going quite well. The reason I'm writing this post is not to do with my life right now, but more to do with my ex-husband. He has come back into my life, and I finally have closure on why he left me. Basically, a week ago, I got a text from an unfamiliar number, and it turned out to be my ex-husband. I did not know what he wanted, and my first instinct was to just ghost him. But he kept texting, and eventually he wrote, "I was a fool, OP. I need you to at least know why I left. Please give me a chance to meet you." I decided that I might as well find out what had sent him careening out of my life. I told Matt that I would be meeting my ex-husband, and he was understanding and trusting of my reasons. I left Joey with him for a day and went to meet my husband at a restaurant. After sitting down, getting acquainted with what we had been doing these past 8 years apart, we got down to discussing our divorce. My husband began by fully admitting he was wrong for leaving the way he did, and for never listening to my side of the story. I accepted that apology, but then I asked, "Then why did you leave?" And what he said next shocked me. "When I went to Haiti, someone came to my hotel reception asking for me, claiming to be your mother. She was an older woman, and there was even a family resemblance. I was still skeptical, but she fell at my feet and told me that I needed to hear her story. When I obliged, she gave me details about your childhood that only she would know, and then she told me the unthinkable. You had had a family in Haiti, which you abandoned to go live in the US. I didn't believe her at first, but she urged me to come with her to her home where I met a man and a little kid who claimed to have been left behind by you. It was really tough to trust you after that, and of course, if I asked you about it, you would deny everything. I got home, and for a whole month, I wrestled with my decision. I didn't want to leave you, but I didn't know how else to respond. I told my family about it, and they also urged me to get a fresh start. Your mother had told me that you would become incredibly hostile if I ever brought it up, and so I left without telling you a single thing. After he stopped, I stared at him dumbfounded. I talked to my mother frequently, and unless she was the devil in human form, there was no way she could have spoken to me with as much love as she did while also leading my husband astray. But then I got to know what had happened as my ex continued. I know it's been 8 years since I left you, OP, and I was sure that I had done the right thing. I kept in touch with your mother too, and I found out that everything I had been told was a lie. Only last year, she contacted me and said that her other daughter wished to come to the United States. As a favor, she wanted me to marry her and get her a green card. I was taken aback and asked what she meant by this. I didn't even know the girl, and the further I pushed, the less faith I had in her. Eventually, she caved in and she said she was not your mother, but your cousin Maria's mother. That is, your aunt. Apparently, she had a massive falling out with your family a while back and had been trying to get back at you and your side of the family. She got to know that I was visiting and capitalized on that to basically wreck our marriage. I'm so sorry I fell for it. Would you just consider taking me back? I didn't even know what to say. I stared at my ex-husband. I felt pity, anger, and loathing all in one. Eventually, I decided that I could not take him back because he never once tried to hear my side of the story. I went home, and ever since then, my ex-husband has been asking to see Joey. I feel backed into a corner. I will not sacrifice my relationship with an amazing person just because my husband realized he had been duped. But I feel like I am an AH for not involving Joey in this. He deserves to know his father, who is, at the end of the day, someone who wants to get him back into his life. AITA for trying to keep my ex-husband at arm's length even after his explanation. Update 1. I spoke to Matt about this and he is shocked at the behavior of my aunt. Living away from home, I didn't even realize what had been going on, and he suggested that we take a trip to visit my family and get things sorted once and for all. Most importantly, he wanted to call out Auntie Esfeline, that cousin Marie's mom, and make sure everyone knew what she had done. I think this is fair because even though my real mother was there for me emotionally, I could tell that she was a little conservative in her thinking and did not want me to be a divorced woman. I called on my mother and told her that I needed to tell her the full story about my divorce and mentioned that my ex-husband had reached out to me. I also implored her not to speak a word of this to anyone so I could make sure that the members of my family who duped me out of my marriage didn't have time to create a cover story. Update 2. The trip is done and dusted, and we are all back home. It was a wild ride, to say the least. After settling in with my family, I sat my mother down and told her what had happened. She was confused at first and slowly got angrier and angrier. She said, I can't believe Esteline would do that. Apparently, after I had left for the US, a few of my relatives had built resentment about my success there and were jealous that I had gotten a chance that wasn't readily available to them. Auntie Esfeline, in particular, felt like I was less talented than her daughter, and if anything, she was the one who deserved to make a life in the US. This all just remained as petty family gossip until my mother and Auntie Esfeline had a dispute of their own relating to some inheritance. I remember my mom talking about it all those years ago, but I always thought it was quite minor. My mother, too, never really told me about everything that went down. I guess as a way of making sure I wasn't distracted from my work and life. After that, there was an irreparable rift between the two sides of the family, and that's when my husband visited. The rest is history. As soon as my mother knew the full story, I knew there was no holding her back. She went over to Auntie Esteline's place and shouted at her in front of everyone. News spread like wildfire, and everyone who was on my aunt's side expressed disgust at how casually she broke up a marriage. After that, there was no chance of her being able to stay in anyone's good books. She eventually broke down and apologized to me, claiming she just wanted what was best for her daughter. The husband and child I had left behind were literally her neighbors who she paid to act. I was disgusted when I thought about how cold and calculating she had been. I could have taken the high road, but I told her off and swore that I would never speak to her again. I think after everything she did, she cannot expect my forgiveness. Update 3. After a lot of discussion and debate, I reached out to my ex-husband and set up a meeting between him and Joey. I asked my son about it too, even though he is quite young. The thing is, I feel that if you ditched your child, you don't deserve anything back from him. But after speaking to Matt, he thinks that at least when it comes to Joey, I could give my ex-husband some space to be in my child's life. It isn't a guarantee that he'll be there forever, but he deserves a day to meet his kid. And then, from there, based on his actions as a father, we shall see. NTA, that is wild. I feel like your ex-husband is still an AH for not even listening to your side of the story. You can keep him out of your life for your peace, and there is nothing wrong with that. I definitely feel like it is NTA. You can't let this dude use his idiocy as a justification for treating you so badly. Although your aunt is the real witch here, he should have been more mature about everything. Next story. I can't tell this without saying my real name, so I will just include it. My name is Evangeline. That is my legal name. I don't like being called Evangeline, just a nickname from it. I don't go by Eve, Evie, or Evo, or any variation of that. I go by Angie, and I've always gone by that. With the exception of like appointments and stuff that require me to use my full name, I have always introduced myself as Angie, and I have never expressed a desire to be called anything else. Everyone knows me as Angie. I recently met my brother's girlfriend for the first time. I introduced myself as Angie, as did my brother, and she just kept calling me anything but that. I did explain it's short for Evangeline, but that nobody ever calls me that. She kept calling me Eve or Eva or even Evangeline. I kept correcting her, just saying, it's actually Angie. And I even said with a smile that I get she's probably nervous and it's always nerve-wracking meeting new people. It got to the point where I corrected her so much that it almost felt like she was doing it deliberately. And I found it really rude, and I don't know about anyone else, but I think it's common courtesy to respect someone enough to at least call them by the right name. She wouldn't stop calling me the wrong name, and it really irked me, so I just said it was nice to meet her, but I'm sorry, but I have to go, and just left. My brother is now mad because he feels like I made it clear I didn't like his girlfriend. Apparently, her feelings are hurt and he wants me to apologize. I told him frankly I don't care about how she feels. What about me? I was there for like an hour and she constantly kept calling me the wrong name and it felt like I was being disrespected, so I left. He is telling me I'm a grown woman and to deal with someone not calling me the wrong name. I just feel that even if she was nervous, why wouldn't she get it even after a few times of me saying my name is Angie? Was I the a-hole? Edit. I only mentioned my full name to make casual conversation and to have like an icebreaker, as I wanted her to feel at ease. I also don't know if it matters, but I'm 27, my brother's 25, and his girlfriend is 22. Edit 2. I was with them at a coffee shop. It was just us, nobody else, so it's not like she had a ton of names to remember and maybe she got confused. My brother also introduced me as Angie literally to her face and would never have referred me as Eva, even in private. Nobody calls me that or anything else. NTA, you introduced yourself as Angie and showed her a lot of grace for her misnaming you for an entire hour. And it's not like your name is unusual or difficult to say or remember. I don't want to say she was doing it on purpose, but she wasn't even messing up and calling you Annie or something similar to the name you gave her. It makes no sense that soon after being introduced. NTA, her behavior was disrespectful and honestly, weirdly intentional. I cannot fathom why an adult would choose to call someone they just met by random nicknames they pulled out of their ass instead of the perfectly normal nickname the other person introduced themselves with and requested they use. Was this some sort of strange power play? It's not like you asked her to call you Thousand Island salad dressing, which she might have reasonably felt uncomfortable with and struggled to address another person by. You asked her to use a very common nickname. I don't know what her deal is, but I wouldn't have stuck around to find out either. Next story. I'm 30, female. My husband has a sister, Anna, 29, female, who lives in an apartment my husband gifted me, with her boyfriend, Rick, and her daughter, 9 months. Anna doesn't work, and Rick has some on-off jobs, and they're always struggling financially. I mention this because my husband sometimes helps them out with money, which is why a couple of days ago I went to the apartment to drop off some cash. I only intended to drop off the cash and go, as Anna and I don't really know each other. But she opened the door and immediately ushered me inside. Her baby was crying, so she asked me to wait while she tried to get her to sleep. So I waited in the living room with Rick, who was doing some kind of remote work. I could see the apartment was a mess, but as a person who finds it nearly impossible to keep a room tidy without a baby, I knew I wasn't in a place to judge. That said, I did want to get on with my day, so I was just lingering in the room hoping she'd come back soon. Anna came back after 10 minutes with the baby still crying and said she was going to try feeding her. At this point, Rick complained about the noise because he was working. I told Anna I'd be leaving too, but she started asking questions about depositing the money in a bank. I tried to answer her questions, but really didn't know all the answers and said she could call her brother and he could tell her what to do. I could tell she was trying to keep me there, but between the crying and Rick getting annoyed about various things, I just wanted to go. Anna then followed me to the door and asked if I would mind watching the baby while she showered and maybe tidied up her house a little bit. At first, I thought she was joking, but Anna said she was indeed serious. She could use the help. I told her I was definitely not the help and she needed to tell Rick to do it. She said he was sick of the apartment being a mess and that she hadn't showered in 2 days and that I had to do this for her. I told her once again I was not going to clean her house for her, and she demanded a reason, to which I said I didn't owe her one. Rick then came into the hall and said it wasn't like I had a job. I could afford to stay and help. Anna called me an evil, stuck-up gold digger and a few other words I can't type out. And eventually I left. After I left, I called my husband to tell him what happened, and he was livid. He told Anna she had to vacate the apartment within 3 months and that he would subsidize her moving at the rate he currently was, which will mean she has to move to a smaller apartment in a less upmarket area. Anna and Rick have now involved my husband's whole family, who said I could have just helped out for 10 minutes and avoided all the unpleasantness. My husband is on my side, but I still feel bad that his whole family is giving him grief over this, so I don't know if maybe I do owe them an apology. Your NTA. Anna and Rick just exhibited royal AH entitlement and deserve eviction. It's not enough that they live in your apartment and accept cash handouts, but you're also supposed to do free housekeeping to fix their slovenly ways? Why would you owe that kind of rudeness and demanding behavior an apology? NTA, your husband is right. Anna and her husband are the gold digging duo. Your husband is subsidizing them. She doesn't work. He's working from home. Therefore, they should be able to deal with their home and family. To treat you so rudely while expecting some over the top favors is beyond entitled and ridiculous. If the family feels differently, let them be the ones to go over to clean, provide childcare, and whatever else they desire. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.